Right, so I think we can get started. Well, first and foremost, welcome to this special webinar on taking control of your data and preventing data breaches. During the course of the webinar, attendees will all be muted. Questions can be posted in the chat, and we will address all questions towards the end of the webinar during the Q&A section. Also, please note that the webinar will be recorded, and this recording will be shared after we conclude this webinar. So just for first round of introductions, I am Brandon. I'm a customer success manager at Dethina. I work closely with Dethina's clients by managing product implementations, onboarding client teams onto Dethina, and providing the necessary post-sale support to ensure our clients extract the maximum value out of Dethina needed to augment their data security capabilities. And with me today, we have Eileen from Yes We Hack.
Thanks, Brandon. Hi, I'm Eileen. I'm the APAC Regional Lead for Yes We Hack. My journey in cybersecurity is a marriage of my past experiences, 5 years in the police force and 6 years in technology sales. Seems like I love fighting the good fight against bad guys, both in offline and online. And looking forward to, share more about bug bounty and how to prevent data breaches today.
Sounds good. Thanks, Eileen. Well, in today's webinar, we'll be covering the following topics: data protection and security challenges. We'll talk a little bit about Dethina, and then, of course, we'll talk about Yes We Hack, and we will present a case study where Dethina and Yes We Hack work together for a client. And of course, we'll open up to Q&A after. Well, in today's world, data breaches have become commonplace, and there are typically two types of organizations that we see when it comes to data breaches. Number one is organizations who have experienced data breaches, and the other side of the coin, which are organizations who will eventually experience data breaches. To prevent data breaches, risk management is necessary, but trying to apply the highest level of protection across all your data can be very costly from both a monetary and operational perspective. Proper risk management requires visibility on your data. So answering questions like what data is sensitive, where is it located, who has access to it. That's required so you can optimize data protection so that your assets representing the highest risk get assigned the highest level of protection. With all these challenges being faced today, that's where Dethina comes in. So our mission is to build trust in the digital world, and we achieve this by providing an AI-driven data discovery and protection platform. This brings a new paradigm to data privacy and security solutions. In a world of ever-growing information, regulation, and consumer privacy expectations, enterprises around the globe rely on Dethina to identify, classify, and protect their sensitive data, thus reducing risk and enhancing their data protection framework. So Dethina's discovery, PII detection, and classification provides the necessary visibility to enable couple of remediation actions. Identity access management. We achieve this by providing a view on high-risk assets and users so that you can determine how you should prioritize access recertification. We also enable a risk-based approach for penetration testing by letting you prioritize high-risk assets first. Following that, we enable labeling and information rights management. By using our classification data, you can either tag or create keyword dictionaries to be used in Microsoft AIP so that the appropriate labeling and their respective protections are applied to files at the point of creation or while data is in storage. On top of that, our tags and keyword dictionaries also work with DLP tools to prevent unauthorized data transmission. And we typically achieve this with a 3-step remediation plan. Number one, we use our data and user risk assessment to provide you with a view on where your sensitive data resides and who has access to them. Secondly, with our augmented data protection tool, we give you the necessary insight and the ability to take proactive control and perform file metadata tagging and generate keyword dictionaries directly from our dashboard. And lastly, with our external file sharing management tool, you're able to take reactive control where you can have a view on files that have been shared outside of your organization, and within that same platform, revoke access to what shouldn't have been shared. And these three steps enable an outcome where you're then able to protect your most critical data by taking a risk-based approach to access recertification and security testing, and also having the necessary information to augment your data protection capabilities. Here we have a closer look at how our three applications work hand in hand. Data and user risk assessment is first used to assess the data landscape to understand what should be protected. And then augmented data protection is also used to provide enhanced visibility on your data through data classification, so that you can then apply protection through automated file tagging and generating keyword dictionaries as part of simplifying data security. And finally, external file sharing management is used to control what is shared externally by understanding what sensitive data is shared externally and having the ability to revoke access as necessary within the dashboard itself. So following this, we'll do a quick walkthrough of the three different dashboards to give you a preview of what you can expect to see even during a free trial. So let's first explore data and user risk assessment, which is used to give you an overview on your data landscape and users. Our data and user risk assessment dashboard gives you a high-level view of the sensitive files detected in your environment, then provides a breakdown on the list of files. It then provides a view of where these files are stored and which groups have access to them. So understanding where these files are stored will help you to prioritize the assets you want to enlist for security testing. You're then able to apply filters. You're then able to apply filters down to a specific risk profile, even down to a specific user where the file widget will be refreshed automatically. If needed, you can also export the full list of users to have a full view of which users present the highest risk. And lastly, you can also export the full list of groups in order to determine which groups present the highest risk. With augmented data protection, we provide more insight on your data and use that insight to augment data protection through file metadata tagging and keyword dictionaries, which can be used for your data protection policies. You'll see that in our augmented data protection dashboard, we have a different set of widgets that aim to provide a view of your data classified into business categories and confidentiality levels. Using our data classification, we've broken down the data into several groups where users prioritize certain sets of data for protection, either through tagging or keyword dictionaries, directly all within the dashboard. And finally, we provide a view on the protection that has been put in place for your data, where the dashboard shows what kind of DLP policies or what kind of labeling has been done on your data. And finally, in external file sharing management, we uncover the sensitive files that have been shared outside of your organization so that you can review file shares to determine if they're legitimate. Upon landing on the dashboard, we have a summary view of the sensitive files that have been shared outside of the organization. You can then filter for sensitive files and files shared with public domains. Within the dashboard, you can then revoke access by selecting the files. You can choose the specific groups or users you would like to revoke access for. And finally, you can also choose to whitelist files if the shared access is found to be legitimate. This will remove the file from the list. Now, all three products we shared today are available for a 2-week free trial should you wish to explore more. Just feel free to reach out to us. And with that, I'll hand it over to Eileen, who will share more about Yes, We Hack.
Thanks, Brendan. So first off, let me switch to the next slide. So first off, I'd like to introduce Yes, We Hack. We are a leading global bug bounty and vulnerability disclosure platform. We are running over 400 programs in more than 30 countries across Europe, APAC, and US for clients ranging from startups, global banks, and governmental institutions. We also have a large community of cybersecurity researchers with over 25,000 vetted ones spread across 120 countries. So what is bug bounty? Very simply, ethical hackers help us to find security vulnerabilities in exchange for a reward. It is an enhanced version of penetration testing. And in fact, our clients frequently find a critical or high vulnerability within 1 hour of launch, even on heavily pen-tested scopes. There is simply access to a lot more talent, more time to discover interesting bugs, and only valid bug findings are rewarded. So how do we get started? There are 5 simple steps. First of all, we would define the program rules, which include the scope of the program. For example, are we testing a domain or a subdomain, a web or mobile application? Is it IoT, firmware, etc.? We will also define the qualifying and non-qualifying vulnerabilities, which is what type of bugs qualify for reward, and also the bounty grid, which is indexed according to the severity of the vulnerability, low, medium, high to critical, based on the business impact. And lastly, any relevant information for the hunters, such as the guidelines they need to follow or how to get credentials for gray box testing, etc. Next, we would then choose to launch in private or public mode. Most companies are in private bug bounty programs. This means we would select specific hunters to work with. This could be 5, 50, or 500, depending on the objective. And in a public program, we simply launch to the entire hunter community. Once the program has been launched and hunters begin their testings, this is where they will submit their findings through our platform and assign a severity level to each vulnerability. We would then validate each report. Are they within the rules? What is the business impact? And what is the severity level? And if the vulnerability is valid, the hunter is rewarded based on the severity level and the bounty grid. And only the first hunter for a given bug is rewarded. Other reports on the same bug are marked as duplicates and do not qualify for reward. So once the vulnerability report has been validated, we may proceed to fix it. And once the fix is applied, we can ask the hunter to check if the fix has been properly applied until we are sure it is resolved. And lastly, we continuously monitor the program's successes by 3 defining factors, whether it's following the budget and if the report's quantity and quality are at the right levels for the client. So with that, we'll move on to speak about a client that both Datina and Yes We Hack are working for, and how they're using both of our solutions to actively prevent data breaches and protect their sensitive data. And over to you, Brandon.
Sorry, I was on mute. Go back. Datina and Yes We Hack teamed up to work with a large e-commerce platform who wanted to ensure that their data was safeguarded in their existing setup. They faced 2 main challenges. They didn't know where their most sensitive data resided, and as a result, they also didn't know if their most sensitive data was properly protected. So Datina's data user risk assessment was used to provide an overview on the most sensitive data, which then transitioned into the company using external file sharing management to rectify illegitimate file sharing and augmented data protection to improve their data loss prevention tools accuracy. In parallel, the data and user risk assessment also identified critical assets where Yes We Hack was engaged to perform security testing, which Eileen will share more about in the next slide.
Yes, over here, it's very important to know that the client has many applications. They had about 150 applications with maybe 200,000 pages. And it was definitely not realistic at all for anyone to test everything at one go. So with Datina's discovery tool and our own reconnaissance, we were able to prioritize which applications to focus on and allocate more budget to test those that are more important. We then applied different strategies to secure different applications, which is necessary to align both the interests of the ethical hunters and the clients. For example, while companies are more interested in securing their crown jewels, very often hunters are more inclined to focus on the weakest links and the lowest hanging fruit. So to achieve the best returns on investment for the client, what we did was to split different applications into different bug bounty programs. And each program had its own set of hunters, rules, and rewards grid. This kind of strategy will really help to focus the attention of hunters on the programs that they have been specifically invited to. And let's take a look at what we did for applications that were more secure. So for these applications, we invited hunters who are more skilled and more experienced with a higher rewards grid as well. It is important to know that the rewards grid serves as a fair reflection of the time, effort, and skills required to find valid vulnerabilities on the scope. So if it is more secure and it takes a long time to find interesting bugs, definitely it will have a higher rewards grid. And for less secure applications, we limited testings to only their core functionality. And this ensures that any valid finding will directly improve the security of the most important parts of the application, instead of fixing features that have less impact on business operations. This was the most effective way to improve security for less secure applications while balancing limited resources in terms of manpower and budget. And for more secure applications, we applied a more well-rounded approach. The focus shifted from just protecting the core, which is already quite secure, to uncovering blind spots and chinks in the overall armor. And lastly, very interestingly, this client had Shadow IT, which are IT projects that are managed without the knowledge or approval of the IT department. And no one even knows they have this data. So apparently some guy from data science actually took quite a bit of customer data and put this database on his own instance. And we were only able to discover it when a researcher was researching an attack vector. And it would not have been possible to discover such shadow IT easily by normal scans or penetration testing. In Bug Bounty, it is exactly so effective because we have the ability to invite 50 people or more that have their own methodology and their own unorthodox methods, which actually mimic the actual attacks in real world where malicious actors would conduct on the company. So with that, we open the floor to Q&A now, and you can also visit both of Yes We Hacks and the Tina's websites to learn more about the cases and solutions that we offer.
Now, Eileen, I see that there are a couple of questions already. So maybe we can tackle those first. I think the first question is actually for Yes We Hack. First question is actually, how can we trust bug bounty hunters?
Right. Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and it's quite a common one that we hear. It can be more productive to ask, how can you trust Yes We Hacks bug bounty researchers? And that is because we do have a proper system to vet our hunters. We conduct background checks on them, and we know their real world identity. And they do have to agree to legal NDAs before hunting on our platform and agree to the policy of non-disclosure. And thirdly, we also monitor their performances in public programs before scaling them up in private programs. And I think what people often forget is the actual risk they have has already started once they've connected their IT systems to the internet, and that system, has its vulnerabilities exposed, and that's the actual risk that they're facing. And what a bug bounty program does, it helps them to identify these risks and bring them down. So every system on the internet can be a lot more secure with a bug bounty program. It really makes no sense, for malicious actors to get themselves background checked and have to, earn points and slowly, gain the rights to work in bug bounty programs on our platform, because all they get in a bug bounty platform is a public URL that they could have hacked anyways without being a bug bounty researcher. So yeah, I think that's hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, I mean, if there are any follow-up questions, just feel free to put it in the chat while we move on to the next question. So I see another question for Yes We Hack. This person's asking, how can we control the budget and bug bounty, and if it's only suitable for large organizations?
Okay, so yeah, I think bug bounty often makes the news for crazy bounties that are paid out But that's only because they are the kind of newsy stuff that people like to read about. But in reality, we are also working with startups that have less than 20 people or 15 people. And the reason why it's suitable for organizations of very huge difference in their maturity and size is because it's a model that can scale up or down depending on the needs and resources that the company has. It is simple if we restrict the number of reports and what we pay for them. This naturally brings down the overall budget needed to run a bug bounty program. And in fact, there are many factors that we can adjust to ensure that a budget is suitable for a company. We can, for example, restrict the testing, the scopes that we're testing. We can have stricter qualifying vulnerabilities, a more modest rewards grid, and even just working with maybe 2 to 5 testers. So that would really, help to bring the overall budget within reasonable grounds.
All right, thanks, Eileen. See another question in the chat. I think this one's more for Defina, I guess. How are Defina's products priced? So currently, the 3 products that we introduced today, they're all available for a 2 weeks free trial. And how we price it is actually based on the number of users within the organization. And of course, it's a tiered pricing, which is actually available on our website, but feel free to reach out to us to have a more detailed discussion. Hope that answers the question. I see another one for Defina. So how does Defina determine file sensitivity? And that's actually a really good question. I guess, we've mentioned sensitive files quite a lot throughout this webinar. And how we determine whether a file is sensitive or not really depends on the contents of the file. When we run our analysis, our AI model is able to perform classification based on the contents and help us classify the file according to a business category. So for example, a file belonging to finance or human resources will probably be more sensitive than a file that is classified as technology, for example, right? And we also look at the number and types of different personal data or PII within the file through our PII detection capability. And of course, we look at key phrases within the file that would help, give better context about what the file is about. So our algorithm kind of combines these 3 different factors to determine whether a file is sensitive or not. And that basically forms, how we determine whether a file is sensitive or not in our analysis and in our assessment for data and user risk assessment. Hope that answers the question. But yeah, feel free to ping in the chat if there are any other questions. We'll leave the floor open for a while more to see if any other questions flow in. And if not, we'll conclude the webinar. So maybe we'll give it a couple of minutes. Well, if there are no other questions, then thanks for joining us and submitting your questions. Of course, if you'd like to speak with us further, drop a note in the Q&A and we'll reach out to you shortly. Or you could scan the QR code on your screens to visit our website to find out more about the various use cases and solutions both Defina and Yes We Hack cater to. Or feel free to email us at the email addresses on your screen.